Hi, welcome to lesson 4.3. Now, in lesson 4.3, you're going to need a couple of pieces of materials. You will need 7 pieces of graph paper. You will need 3 pieces of patty paper. Now, if you're my student and you went to pick up materials, you guys will have these handy. If not, they are available in the library. If you're not my student, then and you're just watching this because you researched how to do this, patty paper is very available, and it's I usually buy it at Smart and Final. So you will need 7 pieces of graph paper, you will need 3 pieces of patty paper, and you will need, of course, a protractor. Okay, so let's go first about where these are going to go. Okay, so the first 2 pieces of paper are going to go on page 102. So pause the video as you please in order to get these glued in there. So this is on page 102. You're going to put 1 here at the top, 1 here at the bottom, and make sure that you draw an X and Y axis through the center of both of these. The next 2 are going to go on page 103. Now the one at the top is going to have an X and Y axis through the center. The one at the bottom, you go ahead and draw your X and Y axis depending on where the problem tells you to put it at. So this is going to be for example number 1, and this is on page 103. On the next page, you will be putting the other 2. This one here is for problem number 2. And this one here is for problem number 3. Make sure you're pausing the video so you can glue these. And then the last page, the last graph paper is going to go at the top right of page 105. And this is going to be for problem number 4. Now, what we're going to do now is we are going to start with the exploration. So let's go back to page 102. Now today we are going to be doing rotations. Okay, we are going to be graphing a polygon and we are going to be rotating it about the origin. Now the origin is this little point right here. You could technically rotate any polygon about any point, but it is more complicated and the rules to apply them are a little bit more complicated. Okay. So we're going to do 3 types of rotations, and we're going to stick to these 3 only. We're going to do a 90-degree rotation, a 180, and then a 270-degree rotation. All of the rotations that we are going to do are clockwise. Now, let's talk about what that means, because some people don't know what clockwise is. Okay, clockwise goes in the direction of the clock. And all the ones that we're going to be doing, did I say clockwise? So we're going to do them counterclockwise. So in that case, it goes in this direction. Okay, so all the ones that we are going to do in this class are going to be counterclockwise. Okay, it's going to go in the opposite direction of the clock. Okay, so the first one that we're going to do is the 90-degree rotation counterclockwise. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are going to draw a polygon. Now I'm going to keep it simple. We're going to stick to a triangle. So I'm going to put this one, and this one. I'm going to call this one A, B, and C. Now, do you have to do the same ones that I'm doing? No. You can do your own points. Or if you want to stick to the points that I'm using, go ahead. Oops. All right. So what exactly are the coordinates of this point? Of this polygon. I'm going to write them here on the side. So all this stuff here that's written here, just ignore it. It's not there. Okay. So A happens to be 3, 4. B happens to be 2, nope, 1, 2. And C happens to be 4, 1. And what we're going to do is we are going to rotate these. Okay? Now when we rotate them, we are going to have new coordinates. Okay? And those coordinates are going to be called A prime, B prime, and C prime. What are those coordinates going to be? Let's figure it out. Okay. So when we're doing this investigation, we're going to be resulting with an equation that's going to help us. Just like we had an equation for a translation, just like we had equations for reflections, we have equations for rotations. So in a tool that we're going to use is the patty paper. Okay, so how is the patty paper going to help us? Well, very simple. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to lay your patty paper flat right on top of your graph. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to draw only a piece of the x and y axis from -1 to 1 and from 1 to -1. And you're going to do this all the time. Now that you do that, I want you to trace your pre-image. Okay, trace your pre-image, including the name of the vertices. But when you do the name of the vertices, call them A prime, B prime, and C prime. Because now what we're going to do is we are going to rotate this 90 degrees about the origin. Now, in order to do that, we're just going to make a 1/4 of a shift, no, 1/4 of a rotation. So what does that mean? It takes 4 rotations to get this back to where it began. So look, here's the one. Here's one rotation, making sure these match. Here is the second rotation, that's 180. Third rotation, that is 270. And then full 360, you're right back where you begin. Okay, but for this one, we're doing a 90-degree rotation counterclockwise. So that means that I'm only going to do one rotation like this. And then I'm going to look at what are the coordinates of where I ended up at. Okay, so the coordinates here happen to be for A, -4, +3. So -4, +3. For B, it happens to be -2, +1. And for C, -1, +4. Now, what I suggest is for you to actually glue this. Or if you have tape, go ahead and tape it. So I'm just going to glue it really quickly. Like this. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we are going to look at the coordinates and see if we can come up with anything interesting. Okay? So let's look at the coordinates for A. For A, you have 3, 4, and the transformation of the rotation ended up with -4, +3. For B is 1, 2, and for B prime, it was -2, +1. For C, it was 4, 1, and we ended up with -1, 4. So as you can see, okay, the y value changes to the x value, but it changes sign. And the x value is now in the y value place, and it did not change. So here, this moved over to the x-axis, but it changed to the opposite. So if I wanted to come up with a rule for this, it would be very simple to come up with. because what ended up happening is that the X and the Y switch, but only one of them changed signs, and it happened to be the Y value. It changed signs into -4, -2, -1. So that would be -YX. So this is the rule for a 90-degree rotation. Now we're going to repeat this process for a 180-degree rotation in the next part. Okay, now keep these equations handy because you will need them for the examples. All right, in this problem, we are going to do, we're going to look for the equation. What's going to be the equation for a 180-degree rotation? What is that going to be? Well, I don't know. Let's figure it out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw any polygon that I want. So I'm just going to put random points. Let's do it right there. Okay. I'm going to call this A, B, and C. Okay, so I'm going to write down the coordinates before I forget. A, B, and C. Okay, the coordinate of A is 1, 2. The coordinate of B is 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the coordinate of C is 4, positive 1. Now, I'm going to use the patty paper again. Now, remember, I'm only using the patty paper to demonstrate the rules. The patty paper is not meant to solve every single problem. The equations are. Okay, so just know that. This is just a tool. Worst case scenario, yeah, you guys can use it. All right, so put your patty paper right flat on top of it. Make sure you are copying the X and Y axis from -1 to 1, both X and Y. See, this is what I'm talking about right there. Okay. Now, trace your polygon, including the names of the vertices, but label them A prime, B prime, and C prime. Now, what we did in the previous problem, we did one 90-degree rotation, counterclockwise, meaning against the clock. We're going to do a 180-degree rotation in this case, so that's equivalent to two 90-degree rotations. So let's see how this looks. Okay, here is 90 degrees. Let's do another one, and that is 180 degrees. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to glue it exactly where it is. Now I'm going to draw the coordinates A prime, B prime, and C prime. Okay, the coordinates of A prime is -1, -2. The coordinate of B prime is -3, -5. And the coordinate of C is -4, -1. And then I'm going to glue this. I'm just going to glue just a little bit enough just to keep it there, pretty much. No big deal. All right, so take a look at the coordinates. 1, 2, -1, -2. 3, 5, -3, 5. Oh, that should be a -5. Sorry. 4, 1, -4, -1. So what ended up happening? The signs changed for both, but they stayed in the same location. So here, X and Y stayed in the same location, but they are both opposite. So this is the rule Okay, so this right here is the rule for a 180-degree rotation. Okay, so you have the 90, and then you have the 180. Okay, the next one that we're going to do is a 270-degree rotation. which is kind of like a composition of both of these. So let's look at what it's going to look like to do a 270-degree rotation. All right, next page. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. We are going to do a 270-degree rotation. And I'm going to look for the rule for that. All right, so go ahead and plot any 3 points that you want. I'm going to make mine, let's see, let's do it right here. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. I'm going to call it A, B, and C. And connect them. All right, once you connect them, you have a triangle. The next thing that you're going to do is you are going to put your patty paper right over it. Okay, and you can see it, patty paper over it. And you're going to trace the X and Y axis only from -1 to 1. Then you trace your polygon, including the names of the vertices. But when you copy the vertices, copy them A prime, B prime, and C prime. Now I'm going to go ahead and write down the names, not the names, but the coordinates of the pre-image. So A, B, and C. Okay, A is 1, 3. B is 4, 4. And C is 5, 1. Now, after the rotation, I will have new coordinates. Okay, so let's go ahead and rotate it. Now remember, we're doing a 270-degree rotation. That's the equivalent of 3 90-degree rotations. Okay, so what I always like to do is I always like to put the pencil right there, put weight on it, and move it. Here's 90, 180, 270. Okay, so the coordinate of A prime is 3, -1. The coordinate of B prime is 4, -4. And the coordinate of C prime is 1, -5. And then you go ahead and just put a little bit of glue. I mean, you just need enough to make it stay. Okay. Now, look at the coordinates. Do you notice anything about these coordinates? And I'm going to fold mine in because it's overlapping it. Okay, look at the coordinates. 1, 4, 5, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1, -1, -4, -5. So as you can see, the y value goes in place of the x, unchanged, and the x value goes in place of the y, and it's changed into the opposite. So yes, these do change, but the only one that changes signs here happens to be the x value going into the y value. So that's going to be y -x. So this is the rule for a rotation about the origin of a 270-degree rotation. So remember, we have done only 3 rotations: the 90, the 180, and the 270. And we are just going to stick to those 3. Are there other ones? Yeah, there are, but they're very complicated, and I really don't feel like teaching those. Okay. Can you do this with a construction? Yes, it's just a little bit, actually it's very complicated. So I'm not even going to bother that. So we're just going to stick to those 3. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the examples. Okay, you ready? Okay, let's start with example number 1. And keep these equations handy, you're going to need them. Okay, example number 1. Now, some of these examples are not from the book, okay, just FYI, mainly because there's been a couple of changes with what we're going to teach you guys. So example 1 says, graph the image of the quadrilateral LMNK after a 90-degree rotation about the origin. So first off, identify. They want a 90-degree rotation. According to the rules that we just discovered, the rule for that is -y and x. That's the rule. Okay, we figured that out in the exploration. Now, what we need to do is we need to write down the coordinates of L, M, K, and N and apply that rule. But Mr. Asuna, we have patty paper. That's so much easier. Of course it is, but are you going to go around using patty paper for all the transformations that involve rotations? No. And you're going to figure out that it is actually not that hard. And you're going to see this. So L happens to be 0, 3. M happens to be 2, 2. Oh, I put these in the wrong order. I'm sorry. It's NK. It doesn't matter, but it's okay. We got to keep it in order. So N is 4, -3, and K is -1, -1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to apply this rule we just found out. Okay, so we're going to come up with 4 new coordinates called L prime, M prime, N prime, and K prime. Okay, so let's apply the rule. What does the rule say? The rule says that the x value is going to move to the y value, and the y value is going to move to the x value, but it's going to change. So the easiest one is to move the one that is not going to change, like this one. Okay, so for this one is the value of x. The value of x for this one is 0, so it's going to go in place of the y. This one here, this one here, and this one here, unchanged. Now the y value is going to go in place of the x, but it's going to change to the opposite. So instead of 3, it's going to be -3. Instead of 2, it's going to be -2. Instead of -3, it's going to be +3. And instead of -1, it's going to be +1. So boom, you applied the rule. No patty paper needed. Now all we got to do is plot the points. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plot these. It's starting to get a little dark. Let's see if we can get a little better. Oh, much better lighting. All right, so plot them. -3, 0. 1, 2, 3, 0. That is L prime. -2, 2. -2, 2. That is M prime. 3, 4. 3, 4. That is going to be N prime. 1, -1. That's going to be K prime. So now you are going to connect them. And what you just did is you just rotated that polygon 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So if I was to grab a piece of patty paper on this and do a 90-degree rotation, that's where it's going to go. Now, all of these rotations, remember that they are counterclockwise, meaning they go against the clock. All right, so this is example number 1. Let's take a look at example number 2. Okay, example number 2 says graph the quadrilateral RSTU with the following vertices and its image after the 270-degree rotation. Okay. Oh, I made a mistake. This one should have been 180. Let me fix that. Okay, never mind. Okay, so 270. Let's plot these. Okay, so for R, you have 3, 1, 3, 1. R, you have S, which is 5, 1. S. You have t, which is 5, negative 3. So that's 5, negative 3. That's t. And 2, negative 1, that's u. So you just go ahead and plot them, connect them. Now in this lesson, guys, you're going to have to be like pausing a lot because there's a lot of graphing you need to do. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a 270-degree rotation. Okay, so I'm going to move this up just a little bit. Now the rule for a 270-degree rotation is this. That's the rule. We did learn that. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to apply that rule to the 4 coordinates. Now, the 4 coordinates, those are the ones up here. So I'm simply going to rewrite them down over here. Now, even though these do take a little bit of time, they're not that hard. You're literally just changing numbers and signs. You just got to know how to do it right. Okay, for R prime, S prime, T prime, U prime. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply that rule. Okay, so let's look at what does not change. The Y value goes in place of the X value unchanged. So that would be 1, 1, negative 3, negative 1, unchanged, goes in the X value. 1, 1, negative 3, negative 1. Now the X value goes in place of the Y value, but it changes to the opposite. So instead of 3, you get negative 3. Instead of 5, you get negative 5. Instead of 5, you get negative 5. And instead of 2, you get negative 2. Now what you're going to do is you are going to plot these. Okay, hopefully I have enough space here. So for R prime, this is going to be 1, negative 3. Whoops. Okay, for S prime, you're going to do 1, negative 5. T is going to be negative 3, negative 5. And U is going to be negative 1, negative 2. U prime, actually. Okay, so then what you do is you connect. And there you go. You have a 270-degree rotation. If I were to have got some patty paper and copy this, rotate it 90, 180, 270. Now, can you come up with these without this? Well, yeah, with a patty paper, but it's really hard. So make sure you are using the equations. I will eventually send you guys a paper with all the equations in there. Chapter 4 has a lot. Okay? All right. So let's take a look at our next example. Okay, example number 3. Okay, we have the following polygon, and I totally forgot to change the name of that. It is not called that, guys. I am so sorry. Okay, it's UVWT or TUVW. It doesn't matter. And we're going to do a 180-degree rotation. Now, the rule for the 180-degree rotation, if you remember, is this. Negative x, negative y. So let's go ahead and write down what are the coordinates of each one of those. So u, v, w, and t. Okay. So u is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 3, negative 5, 3. V is -3, 5. W is -1, +2. And T is -2, +1. And what we're going to do is we are going to apply that rule and find what these are. Okay, so the rule is very simple. You keep the x and the y in the same location, you just change the signs. So -5, 3 is going to be 5, -3. -3, 5 is going to be 3, -5. -1, 2, 1, -2. -2, 1, 2, -1. You just apply that rule right there. And then you plot. Notice how I did this with no patty paper? That's the goal. Okay, so let's plot these. U prime is going to be 5, -3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -3. That's U prime. V is 3, -5. 3, -5. So that's V prime. W is 1, -2. And T is 2, -1. Hold on. There's something wrong. Yes, there was something wrong. My original coordinate was not -2, 1. It was -2, -1, which means that this is going to be 2, 1. Okay, so 2, 1 is right there. Okay, hence now I can actually connect these. Okay. So there it is. Pre-image, image after a 180-degree rotation about the origin. And that is example number 3. So let's look at the last example. Okay, for the last example, we have quite a bit of things going on here. Okay, we first have to do a reflection about the y-axis, then followed by a rotation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the math first. Actually, let's plot the points. 1, -3, 1, -3, that would be R. And then S would be 2, -6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. S. Okay, so let's do some math first. Then we'll do the plotting, because that's the easy part. So let's look at the first coordinates are 1, -3, and 2, -6. So the first thing that we're going to do is the reflection about the y-axis. Now, if you remember from the previous lesson, okay, the reflection about the y-axis was this. Oh, you can't see that. Okay. And then we just learned that the rotation 90 degrees about the origin is this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to apply the first rule first and then the second rule. So let's do the first rule. R prime, S prime. Okay, so the first rule is the x value changes to the opposite, but the y value stays the same. So that would be -1, -3, -2, -6. Now, when you're applying the second transformation, you're applying it to the image, not the pre-image. Okay? So don't apply this to these two. Don't do that. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is apply the second one. Okay, and the rule says negative yx, and they switch positions. So the x value is going to stay the same, but it's going to go in the place of the y. So that's -1, that's -2. This one's going to change to the x position, and it's going to change to the opposite, 3, 6. Now what we got to do is we need to plot these two. Okay, so the first one, -1, -3. That's r prime. -2, -6. That is s prime. And look, you can see that that's a reflection about the y-axis. Then we graph this one, the rotation. So that's going to be 3, -1. That is r double prime. And then 6, -2, which is s double prime. Boom. All right, so the first one is the reflection followed by the rotation. All right, now don't forget to make sure you do your extra practice. Your extra practice is on page 105 and 106. Just make sure to skip problems 10 and 11. All right, thank you, and we will see you later.